Tennessee's next superstar is?
Their next superstar is the star at the position.
Go what you did.
All right. Yes. Tennessee's next superstar is Boo Carter. The Boo has arrived. No, that's not. I'm trying to think of a way to say it.
Boo-hoo.
Why he's going to make offenses cry. Boo-hoo. So, yes, the next superstar is here, and he goes by the name of Boo Carter.
Okay, why is he Tennessee's next superstar? And then I'll tell you why I still have concerns about Boo Carter. All right, why is he Tennessee's next superstar?
So, Boo Carter was named SEC Co-Freshman of the Week. I don't know if you guys saw that. I pulled up his plays. He had a PFF grade over the weekend of 66.5 in 32 plays. Now, that seems average. Doesn't seem great. Doesn't seem bad. Just seems average. However, when you factor in that the safety behind him, Andre Turrentine, had a 35.7 PFF grade, he didn't have the help he needed from the safeties. So he was playing really physical football and staying in position. Had half a tackle for a loss while also coming up with a sack. He was very athletic, played extremely hard, and if you just watch the game, I haven't seen a safety in a long time or a star or a defensive back in general that when they get their hands on you, they wrap you up. Did you notice that with Boo? I don't think he ever let anybody shed a tackle with his.
True.
And that lets me know that he is he already looked athletic. He's also way stronger than I thought. And based on these PFF grades, he's staying in position. Boo Carter is the next superstar on Rocky Top.
Okay, I'm not going to argue with you, but I am going to bring up a couple of things that I think are cause for concern. Number one, Boo Carter didn't start the season necessarily at star. That was still Christian Harrison. And I don't believe that's because lack of ability or lack of grasp of the offense. I believe that he was every bit as ready to start the season as Eric Berry was, who, by the way, friend of the program, Fred White, said of his potential, he's a combination of Del Carter and Eric Berry. And Fred White doesn't throw that stuff out there lightly. So hit thumbs up if you like that from Fred White, who we'll not have on the show before long. He also had the situation, I believe it was after the Chattanooga game, where he was dancing around on social media before Josh Heupel looked at him and said, "Stop that." And he stopped that. I think based off what I've been told about him in high school, and remember he transferred high schools amid some kind of odd circumstances, there is going to be a maturity issue at play with Boo Carter for the remainder of this season. Now, if he suddenly grows up, I'll be the first to say I was dead wrong, Caleb. But I think that's why he didn't start the season at star with Jordan Thomas out for the year, who was going to be the starter. I think Christian Harrison, by comparison, is very limited compared to Boo Carter, who I think can do just about anything on the football field. I think if he had to, he could play free safety. I think if he had to, he could obviously play strong. He can play star. I'm going to give you another reach that you might completely disagree with. But if they decided, and they did this back in the day, back in the Philip Fulmer days, they would grow safeties into fast linebackers, and they would oftentimes take running backs or quarterbacks from the other side and make them linebackers. I know he's 5'11" and 195 pounds, but Fred White gained 20 pounds to move from corner to safety. I don't know if you know that, but he ran a 10-2 100 meters. If they said, "Boo, you can be an elite linebacker," I believe by next year he could be an elite linebacker. So I've got no question about his talent, none whatsoever. But the maturity issues, until I see him get through an entire season, are always going to concern me. The one that we've talked most about is James Banks, right? If he was a more mature player, he would be one of the top 5 players that I covered in my 25 years of covering Tennessee football. And I think he would be right up there with you too. But there have been other players that have kind of reached their potential, but didn't because the coaches never fully trusted them. I go back to Kelly Washington. Everybody wants to rip on Kelly Washington because of his celebration and all that stuff. There were 2 or 3 more guys on that team, and I'm not going to name them, but they were bigger problems than Kelly Washington was. I could name players now that you would know that had a positive impact that never grew up in college. So I've seen it happen before. I'm not saying it's going to happen to Boo Carter, but that still scares me with Boo. Physically, boom. He's everything you want. If they had a rash of injuries at cornerback, he could play corner tomorrow.
Yes, he could. And this is where I'm totally breaking with you. Like 100%. Okay, let's just take in a vacuum real quick. Boo Carter versus Kelly Washington versus James Banks. Because let's talk about the problem with Kelly Washington and let's talk about the problem with James Banks. First, the lesser one, because I really want to light into James Banks. But I'll start with Kelly Washington. No one really questioned his work ethic ever, right? He was the hardest working player on the field by far.
I was told he was one of the top 3 hardest workers. Johnny Long told me this, who's a strength and conditioning coach, along with Peyton Manning and Al Wilson.
I believe that. I mean, he was demanding workouts.
That wasn't just in the weight room. Peyton didn't hit the weight room all the time. But I'm just talking about working on your craft.
Right. Now, Kelly Washington, even though he was the hardest working player, he was very much a hardest working player. Like a very selfish player. Is that fair to say? In the sense of he was more about his own future. And I get it. You're supposed to be about that in college. But he really was willing to do things like throw the team under the bus, like trick Dante Stallworth to going to the NFL so he'll get more touches in college.
Yes, for those that don't know, he told Dante Stallworth, he said, you have got to look out for your family. Dante Stallworth signed with an agent and or got dinner from an agent, depending on who you believe. And the NCAA said, you can come back, but you're suspended for 4 games. So Dante said, I'll bolt. As it turned out, it didn't work out well for Kelly, and it didn't work out. Well, it worked fine for Dante, who we may have on the program here shortly. By the way, on the program would be Ryan McGee with ESPN, Josh Pate, and Paul Feinbaum before the end of the week. All right, Caleb. So
yes,
I don't think that. Go ahead. Finish your point.
Yeah, I was going to bring up James Banks because I'm going to compare. Because one, Kelly Washington, Boo Carter seems like a team guy. I'm just going to say it. Everything I've heard. I mean, he was recruiting for Tennessee last year. So that Kelly Washington issue does not apply to Boo Carter. James Banks also doesn't apply to Boo Carter. You've told me yourself. James Banks, it was a diva. He was lazy. That was not Boo Carter's immaturity. Is he? I mean, you don't want to say this, Dave, but Boo Carter's immaturity is that he's too competitive and tries too hard. James Banks' immaturity was he was lazy and thought I am a superstar and I don't have to work that hard because I'm going to be James Banks, and like everything wrong in an athlete as a human. I mean, isn't that a huge difference? Like you talk about Boo Carter's maturity level, but if his maturity level is okay, he may play a little bit too hard here. He may throw a little bit extra shove on the field. He could maybe lose his cool a little bit and needs to work to control that. Wouldn't you rather have that than a James Banks who says, I don't have to go to practice because I'm a superstar and I'm lazy and I don't care?
I will give you that. That I think Boo Carter is much more along the lines of a team player. I think he wants to beat Alabama because he's aware of the Tennessee-Alabama series growing up in Chattanooga, whereas I think Kelly Washington, he saw Tennessee as a stopping point to go to the NFL. And let's be honest, I mean, he looked like a very good NFL player. He had the neck issue, but I don't think there was a maturity issue with him. Now, comparing anybody to James Banks at this point is just ridiculous because that guy was so out of touch with what he had God-given physical ability. It's really tough to put into words. It's like what's the movie with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon?
Wow, that really narrows it down, Dave.
Sorry. It was Good Will Hunting. Good Will Hunting. So James Banks was the guy that had all the ability, but just decided to sling a sledgehammer instead of taking advantage of his ability the way that Matt Damon did. What about that for reaching a comparison?
I mean, look, James Banks was just an absolutely Like, that is I would never compare somebody to James Banks. I mean, I'm willing to call him. I say this about certain athletes, and I only say this about certain athletes, guys. When you get in a position to be great and you don't care, then I say you're a disgrace. I say that about Jamarcus Russell in the NFL. He's a disgrace because it's not that he was a bust. It's that he didn't care. He got his money, and as Stephen A. Smith once said, evidently spent it on a bunch of donuts.
And scissor.
And scissor, yes. James Banks is a disgrace for the college level. He didn't care. He did not care. He was a lazy player and didn't care. Boo Carter's the opposite of that. Boo Carter, Dave, just look at him. He really cares. He is one. I'm willing to bet he's one of the hardest workers on the team. He plays extremely hard. He's a great team player. I mean, you talk about his maturity. Maybe it's on social media. Maybe he talks a lot. Okay, that can be corrected a little bit. You can just teach a kid kind of, maybe measure yourself a little bit. But Dave, if that's all, isn't that all a result of just how committed he is to the program?
Yes. All right, I'm going to say bank on it and tell me if you agree with this. Boo Carter will be an all-SEC player by the end of his sophomore year, which would be next year. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, it's a given that he's going to make the all-SEC freshman team. Bank on it. Brought to you by Commercial Bank. I've worked with them for over 20 years. Love them. Commercial Bank, member FDIC. Life made better. Commercial Bank creates positive experiences for every customer every day with better solutions, better technology. Commercial Bank, again, member FDIC for personal and business. Commercial Bank, life made better. Caleb, are you willing to bank on it that Boo Carter will be all SEC at the end of the 2025 season?
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
All right. Are you willing to go all SEC as an underclassman, which he would be a sophomore next year?
1,000%. I'm not ruling out All-American as an underclassman as a sophomore next
Whoa.
year. And I'm not ruling out freshman All-American this year.
Okay, I wouldn't rule out freshman All-American either.
Yeah. And, I mean, I'm sorry. I watched him play, and I agree. Like, maybe he plays a little bit intense, but I love guys who play like that. I love the way he plays. I'm in love with the way he plays. And I just, it's hard for me to understate that. And by the way, just quick story. You do your Uncle Days. I know a couple of players that were from the 2016, and they basically said that when Philip Fulmer, you remember when you would go into the rooms where all the highlights of Tennessee plays were in the practice facility, and they would show all these highlights of big plays like all the time, like throughout seasons and games.
Mm-hmm.
Fulmer reportedly mandated that they remove anything involving James Banks doing anything successful, because Fulmer absolutely despised him with the way he made so many concessions for him, and James Banks just consistently made a fool out of him. And after he was kicked off the team, and then he had a 2004 season, I think at Carson Newman or somewhere like that, he reportedly tried to come back onto the team and was a rare talent. But Fulmer took his behavior so personally, he was like, no, just like never even come near our campus again.
Well, I think I was there the moment that the final straw broke the camel's back. And I'm trying to remember if it was during spring camp or preseason camp. I think it was during spring, Caleb. But I remember Philip getting on him and saying, listen, I'm done with this. Go run. And you're supposed to run around the field. I mean, everybody's done this, right? He didn't. He just went off to the sideline and did deep knee bends. That's exactly what he did. And Caleb, that was just a big middle finger to Philip Fulmer. And I believe that it showed his lack of discipline that he had previously in his career. And I think once you lose that, it's pretty impossible to get back.
And somebody with that type of mentality like James Banks doesn't deserve to have an NFL career, and he deserves to live the rest of his life in regret for it.
Yep.
And Boo Carter's the anti-James Banks. He's not that.